And it's time for another daily dose of Joe, your daily cup of Joe, as Matt Ryan had said. Y'all like my dad, and you want to see him do more videos. So
afternoon.
He says afternoon. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there, Dad. No disrespect. Yeah, it's your fault. How dare you? So I asked the Nomies if they had any questions for my dad for today. And we had a couple come in from the private Facebook group, and one person, I believe it was Alan, asked, what do you think of kids today?
I think kids today are a lot smarter than when I was a young man.
What do you mean?
Well, they have just so much access to so much more information firsthand, quicker. It's quicker to get information. It's quicker to communicate. Just everything's quicker. Sometimes that could be a bad thing with like the cyberbullying and that kind of thing that's going on. I'm not quite sure how we can get that stopped or at least under control, but that is a serious problem from what I understand.
What do you think the biggest hurdle that faces kids today happens to be?
Actually, I think the toughest hurdle is probably communicating with their own parents. Sometimes it's easier. I always thought we should have had a club when we were raising our three sons that when they became a teenager, you traded kids because all the other kids would talk to me except my own. And then after they got a little older, of course, then they changed. But then you can't shut them up.
So what do you think life would have been like had you had access to things like the internet back then? How did you get information?
I would have probably ended up like you and never left the house. But I mean, I'd have been playing the games. I like the video games. I like all the gaming aspects, especially like anything with airplanes or flying or cars. Those three things kind of for gaming I like. I don't like the where you go in and sword fight the monsters and that kind of thing. I don't particularly like those.
So are there any questions there in the... I don't know if there's any further questions in the chat room necessarily, but not really anything coming in from chat in either way.
Oh, I disagree. I think kids are a lot smarter today than they used to be.
Wait, but can you qualify that? I don't understand when you say they're smarter. Like, what does that mean? How could they be smarter? I just think
there's so much information that they have available to them. The parents are more open with their kids today than they used to be. A lot of things that parents used to keep from their kids is now, if the parents don't tell them, they either hear it in the classroom or see it on the internet or they find out other ways. So it forces those kinds of communications, and the kids to me just seem smarter.
So do you think that, and this is kind of an open-ended question, but people have asked me if college is as important today as it was even when I went to college.
I think education is of supreme importance. It used to be where, like for example, my father never graduated from high school. He quit school after about 6th grade to take care of his family. I went on to high school and college after the military. I went to college, and then I encouraged all three of the boys to go to college. I think education is one of the few things they can't take away from you. So the more knowledge you have, that's your knowledge. No one else can take that from you.
But in many ways, that kind of plays into your idea that kids are smarter these days because they have access to information.
If I understand this comment here, that's true. The kids are smarter because they know how to use the technology, whereas we didn't have the kinds of technology that is available nowadays. We used to either have to ask our parents, and most of the times they didn't know our answers to the questions we asked, or didn't have the time, or they were too busy earning a living.
What if you could pick one tool today, like a gadget, a gizmo, even a game, that you would have wished you would have had as a kid? What would that one thing be? Anything. Just one thing, though.
Just one thing?
One thing. It could be anything. It could be a big thing, a small thing.
An iPad.
Why would you have wanted an iPad as a kid?
Well, you didn't have to erase. You didn't wear holes in your paper when you use it, and the games.
But as a well, not just a parent, but as an accountant, did you ever believe that calculators made you dumber or made you lazy in terms of calculating certain numbers, or even as far as spreadsheets are concerned? You grew up and really built your career in a time where spreadsheets were real sheets of paper.
Right. Someone asked a question, I forgot where I saw it, as why I became an accountant. I think he was an accountant also, and forgive me, I forget the name. But when I was in the service, I was fortunate to be on embassy duty in Africa, in Ghana. And there they put me in charge of the household accounts. So I had to keep track of things and not really knowing anything about accounting. So when I got out, after I had learned that, I became more accustomed to it and decided I wanted to learn more, and that's why I ended up being an accountant. And I liked working with the numbers.
So, your first calculator, did that not make you lazier?
Well, it almost got me a divorce. My calculator that we bought originally would add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Didn't even have a constant. You would have to clear it for each calculation. And it cost, and you got to understand, this was quite a while ago, it cost like $300. And so I had to make monthly payments of like $25 until that was paid for. But that was a very expensive piece of equipment, and I don't think it made me lazy. I think it just made me more proficient at doing the things I already knew how to do manually.
Okay, so what about moving from...
I think it's important people learn how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide on paper before they do utilize those things.
Why?
Well, because they have an understanding of how it works and the whys. Like, for example, multiplication is nothing more than repetitive addition, and division is nothing more than repetitive subtraction. But it gives you quicker ways to do it, and knowing those things made it quicker to add and subtract and divide and multiply. So now if you know how that all works, you can use a calculator a lot easier and a lot more efficiently.
So what about moving from printed sheets to virtual sheets? Calculations. Your Excel that you now can't live without.
Right. That was a big one for me because I used to have to do a lot of projections for the company I worked for one of the companies I worked for, and several since then. You'd make a mistake or want to change something, you had to get the eraser out and you erase the worksheet, and then you have this big hole across your worksheet, so then you have to rewrite the worksheet. Well, now with Excel and numbers and those kinds of things, you don't have to do that any longer. And I always found it a challenge. Like back originally, I learned how to use what they called Multiplan. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but it was a spreadsheet program, and I was asking the people how to do something, a certain function, and they couldn't tell me. They said it was impossible. So I stayed at work until about 4 in the morning and figured out how to do it. And the next morning when they came in, I showed them how to do it.
So it's in the blood.
Yeah.
To troubleshoot and tweak.
Yeah, to try and figure out how things work and the whys.
So if anybody has any questions, please leave a comment below somewhere in the comments thread, and we may be able to answer. Dad, Joe, I call him Dad. You can't call him Dad. You can call him Joe, Mr. Perillo. Although there's now two Mr. Perillos. No, Mr. Perillo is my dad. I'm not Mr. Perillo. You can leave a comment, and he may be able to answer the question or questions tomorrow. He'll still be here, and he's also on YouTube. Joe Perillo is his username. I've redirected his. He's got a. It's not really a. Well, it's a domain. Joe.perillo.com currently leads to his YouTube channel. If you want to see Joe do videos in his own YouTube channel about whatever it is he wants to talk about, Joe's whatever, then let him know.
Coming to an iPhone, an iPad, or any kind of computer in the near future, right?
Something like that.